Will you take steps to return Kilmar Abrego Garcia to the United States and put him in front of a judge?
Well, I'm not involved in it.
I think that it's funny getting that hot mic moment where Donald Trump and the El Salvadorian president are talking. They're kind of loitering around at the front of the Oval Office where they're joking about like, oh, wouldn't it be great if you could take our homegrown ones? You cannot legally send Americans to an El Salvadorian prison camp, no matter what they have done. Senator Kennedy was on our air earlier this afternoon with Sandra and John and said as much.
As the Trump administration sends out their best to blatantly distort the truth and just lie about the Supreme Court decision regarding a man mistakenly sent to an El Salvador prison, most appearances of which came on Fox News, of course, there was one rational voice, that being Jessica Tarlov on The Five.
We found out that there are people who are between the ages of 1 and 4 are getting Social Security, that we've got something like $69 million of taxpayers who are dead.
Okay, but let me
just finish. But the problem is this.
Tarlov, as she's used to by now, was forced to listen to obscene cruelty as one of her co-hosts made the substantive case for this deportation.
Can Garcia name anyone on the team? Anyone on any Bulls team besides Jordan? Everyone from El Salvador knows what it means when you wear a Bulls hat. It means you're MS-13.
That substance being the following statement, quote, "At worst, a guy gets sent to a country he doesn't want to go to. You know what? I can live with that."
It's a mirror. Biden opened the border, millions came in, and surely murderers and rapists were part of that. Now we're deporting hundreds of thousands, and surely 1 or 2 might not be criminal. However, compare the error. In one of these errors, Americans don't die. At worst, a guy gets sent to a country he doesn't want to go to. You know what? I can live with that.
Into a prison camp, not just out into the wild.
Look, I'm sorry, Jessica. I understand your concern, but I refuse to care about one person who's an illegal alien when the mental shelf space that I have is now reserved for victims of crime, which I've been talking about for years. This manufactured narrative, family man, father of 3, coming from the media, who with the same intensity talked about having children was bad for the climate, are now telling us that when you have children, you are now a pillar of the community. If that guy was a white American citizen, they would just call him a MAGA extremist. But he's an illegal alien and he has kids, and now he's the spirit of the community. He's a good guy.
Which, of course, Tarlov pointed out as she hit back at not only her co-host's despicable lack of human decency, but the constitutional crisis that beckons as a result.
I think that it's funny getting that hot mic moment where Donald Trump and the El Salvadorian president are talking. They're kind of loitering around at the front of the Oval Office where they're joking about like, oh, wouldn't it be great if you could take our homegrown ones? You cannot legally send Americans to an El Salvadorian prison camp, no matter what they have done. Senator Kennedy was on our air earlier this afternoon with Sandra and John and said as much.
Okay.
You look at, one more thing to say. Actually, multiple more things to say, but what is most important is that under the Alien Enemies Act, you deserve due process. And that's what the Supreme Court ruled. And if you go back to World War II, when we were invoking this same act, that people who were here undocumented from Japan, from Germany, from Italy, were allowed to go into a court where they could argue that they weren't a danger to this nation. Abrego Garcia was not afforded that right to come into court and to argue as to why he should not be deported. And it is not the same thing to deport someone to their home country as to send them to a prison.
Well, then
you know that.
But Donald Trump saying on Truth Social that maybe you'll go to El Salvador. At this moment, when the ACLU attorneys are reporting that people have been falsely sent to El Salvador, which is what we said was going to happen, they're being sent back because guess what? They're not Venezuelan, and also they send some women, and El Salvador doesn't want to take women. Are you going to finally admit that the way that they are vetting these people is inaccurate?
Oh, you're into
as
vetting now.
Yeah,
Vetting is
that's
good
so
now.
funny. You guys are so cool. What about the Venezuelan soccer player who was tortured by the Maduro regime and was sent to El Salvador? He had a legitimate asylum claim, went through a legal port of entry.
What about the Americans who've been murdered by illegals? Let's not do all this.
Why not? Because it doesn't suit you right now.
Democrats and whether or not they're voicing any kind of negative. It's not ridiculous.
It is.
The question was a simple one, and you can't answer it.
I did answer it. I answered it explicitly because I'm a grown-up.
All right.
And I can say, oh, Janine asked me a question. Here's my answer. Also, Janine, then could you answer my question? Do you think it's okay that innocent people are being sent to a foreign gulag?
I think that what's important is that we get rid of, I think what's important is that we get rid of the criminals in this country, that your favorite president allowed to come into this country and create
criminals.
To create all kinds of havoc in this country. And you know what? If you want to talk about betting, then we have to talk about Joe. But Jesse, let me ask you this. Is it time to invest in Tesla?
And here is the thing, right? Republicans want nothing more than just to send up smoke and mirrors to hide what most Democrats are calling to attention regarding this case here. And that's the fact that we have a full-blown constitutional crisis playing out in front of our eyes.
Today, Judge Boasberg, in a case against your administration, said the Constitution does not tolerate willful disobedience of judicial orders. Do you agree with that statement?
Well, you're going to have to speak to the lawyers. We have great lawyers. I can tell you this, we're doing a fantastic job of getting criminals out of this country who Biden allowed into the country. Hundreds of thousands of criminals, murderers and drug dealers. And I was elected because of the fact, I would say maybe that was the number one factor, for a lot of reasons, the economy, a lot of things. But one of the primary reasons I was elected is because I said, I'm going to get the criminals that he allowed to come into our country so stupidly through open borders. I'm going to get them out.
I mean, just yesterday, a federal appeals court said the fact that the Trump administration is claiming that it can't do anything to facilitate this return, quote, should be shocking. In a blistering order that ratchets up the escalating conflict between the government's executive and judicial branches. A 3-judge panel from the 4th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals unanimously refused to suspend a judge's decision to order sworn testimony by Trump administration officials to determine if they complied with her instruction to facilitate Abrego Garcia's return. Judge J. Harvey Wilkinson III, who was nominated by Republican President Ronald Reagan, wrote that he and his 2 colleagues, quote, cling to the hope that it is not naive to believe our good brethren in the executive branch perceive the rule of law as vital to the American ethos. Further stating, this case presents their unique chance to vindicate that value and to summon the best that is within us while there is still time. The 7-page order adds to the scrutiny this administration is facing over their position and the ominous message that it sends to the American people when the judiciary and executive branches are at odds. And if you're wondering, perhaps the president will seek to clear up his position at one of his many press rotundas that he likes to host in a day, this was his response.
If we're hold you in contempt, will you take steps to return Kilmar Abrego Garcia to the United States and put him in front of a judge?
Well, I'm not involved in it. I'm going to respond by saying you'll have to speak to the lawyers, the DOJ. I've heard many things about him, and we'll have to find out what the truth is. But I will say this, you know, we were inundated by millions of people, many millions of people during the Biden administration. They say 21 million. And a big percentage of those are criminals, serious criminals. I'm not saying just criminals because they came into the border illegally. I'm saying they're criminals at the highest level, murderers. Many of those people murdered more than one person, and they're on the loose. And I was elected to get rid of those criminals, to get them out of our country, or to put them away, but to get them out of our country. And I don't see how judges can take that authority away from a president.
And so what many Republicans claimed wouldn't happen, the gross overreach of the executive branch, has come to fruition.
Do you plan to ask President Bukele to help return the man who your administration says was mistakenly deported? The man who was mistakenly deported to El Salvador?
Court filings from the Trump administration revealed that they mistakenly deported a Maryland father to this horrific prison in El Salvador. Abrego Garcia is married to a United States citizen and has a 5-year-old disabled child who is a U.S. citizen. He has no criminal record in the United States. The Trump administration deported him where? To the very country from which he fled. Here's the story that was written about him in The Atlantic. The Trump administration acknowledged in a court filing Monday that it had grabbed a Maryland father with protected legal status and mistakenly deported him to El Salvador. But in Monday's court filing, attorneys for the government admitted that the Salvadorian man, Kilmar Abrego Garcia, was deported accidentally. Although ICE was aware of his protection, removal to El Salvador, Abrego Garcia was removed to El Salvador because of an administrative error, the government told the court. Trump lawyers said the court has no ability to bring him back now that Abrego Garcia is in Salvadorian custody.
Do you plan to return him?
How can I return him to the United States? Like I smuggle him into the United States or what do I do? Of course, I'm not going to do it. It's like the question is preposterous.
So now what? Well, of course, they'll say nothing out of fear, as was admitted here.
What do you have to say to people who are afraid? Or who represent people who are afraid? We are all afraid. Okay. It's quite a statement. But we are, we're in a time and a place where I don't know, I certainly have not been here before. And I'll tell you, I'm oftentimes very anxious myself about using my voice, because retaliation is real. And that's not right.
Love this video? Continue the conversation by following us on Instagram @MeidasTouch and help us blow past 1 million followers.